Charles Manson is a man that needs no introduction. Ever since the infamous Tate LaBianca case in August of 1969, Manson's name and the name of his cult, the Manson family, have been the subject of documentaries, podcasts, books, and films. There is a wealth of knowledge about the Manson family thanks to books such as Helter Skelter. But there are a handful of mysteries that have been attributed to one of the most famous cults of all time. Number 5. One of the more troubling questions that pops up about the Manson family is whether their leader, Charles Manson, was a CIA test subject. These claims, if true, could completely change the way we view Charles Manson and the Manson family, and could create a controversy for the US government. For those who are interested in reading about a canonical telling of the Manson family murders, the book Helter Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi and Kurt Gentry is certainly an excellent place to start. Bugliosi was part of the prosecution team during the Manson murder trials and provides an extremely in-depth account of what happened on those fateful nights in 1969. But how does Bugliosi tie into Charles Manson being a CIA project? Well, this is where Tom O'Neill comes into the picture. In 1999, O'Neill was tasked with writing investigative journalist pieces on the Manson family, and quickly made a name for himself when he started asking unfavorable questions. He quickly turned on Bugliosi and accused him of tampering with witnesses to suppress and cover up evidence that would have exposed a darker truth. Of course, Bugliosi strongly denied these claims and threatened to sue O'Neill and told him to stop poking his nose where it didn't belong. O'Neill was undeterred. He had no money or assets that Bugliosi could sue him for, and it was going to take more than the threat of a lawsuit to stop him from digging for the truth. After speaking to Bugliosi and accusing him of tampering with witnesses, O'Neill turned his attention to another key question. Why was Charles Manson a free man in August of 1969? O'Neill explained in his articles that Manson had served numerous prison sentences for an array of crimes, including federal ones. He was well known to police forces across the US for being a violent and eccentric man, but somehow always managed to keep his nose clean when he was on parole. Interestingly, on August 16, 1969, a week after the Tate LaBianca murders, Spahn Ranch, where the Manson family lived, was raided following a tip. Inside of the ranch, they found multiple weapons as well as stolen property, but bizarrely, after a few hours, each member of the Manson family was released and free to go. Official records state that this was done as a clerical error and that the warrant for their arrests had the wrong date on it. But O'Neill believes that there is a much darker explanation behind this. O'Neill believes that Charles Manson was allowed to roam free for as long as he did because he was a part of the CIA's Operation Chaos and was fed mind-altering substances such as LSD. It's believed that the CIA was using Manson as an extension of MKUltra and wanted to test mind control techniques and test the effects of these substances on people. O'Neill's theory comes across as a conspiracy theory, with him connecting the dots and making patterns where there aren't any. Of course, only time will tell, and until documents are released from these projects, we may never know. Number 4. Those of a certain age will be familiar with the Beach Boys, and younger viewers will probably have heard their parents talk about them. For those who don't know, the Beach Boys are an American rock band that formed in the early 1960s, right when the counterculture movement was taking off in the US. This was also right around the same time as the sexual liberation of women, and just years after the word teenager had found its way into the dictionary. Looking back, the 60s seemed like an idyllic time to be a young person. With rock concerts, festivals, and the counterculture, there was certainly plenty to do. What most people don't know about is the Beach Boys had ties to one of the most infamous cults in history, the Manson family. Dennis Wilson, one of the members of the Beach Boys, met Manson in a chance encounter in the summer of 1968. Wilson was driving home when he spotted two female hitchhikers. He decided to pull over and give them a ride. Little did Wilson know that the two women who had just entered his car were members of the now infamous Manson family. As they arrived at their destination and the two young women got out of the car, Wilson was greeted by Manson, who immediately went on the charm offense. From the get-go, Wilson was captivated by Manson and hung on his every word. Another member of the Beach Boys told reporters Dennis and Charlie hit it off right away, which is not surprising, given Charlie's skills at ingratiating himself with strangers. Dennis is in no rush to leave. He hung out for a while, smoked, and listened to some of Charlie's songs. Manson was an aspiring musician and was thrilled at the chance to make connections with one of the world's biggest rock stars of all time. Within days, Charles, along with his family, had invited themselves to live in Wilson's home, and Wilson did little to stop them. By all accounts, Wilson and the Manson family had a lot of fun while they lived there. They consumed numerous substances and engaged in group activities. But then at the close of the summer of '68, the Manson family abruptly moved out of Wilson's home after producers at Wilson's studio and Manson got into a disagreement. An argument ended with Manson pulling a knife on everyone present, and after that, Manson moved his family out of the home. It appears that this incident didn't sour the relationship between Manson and Wilson too much though, and the pair regularly kept in contact with each other and hung out from time to time. The real mystery comes in spring of 1969, when Wilson claims to have witnessed a murder orchestrated by none other than Charles Manson himself. His fellow band member, Brian Wilson, said that Wilson had told him, quote, "I just saw Charlie take out his M16 and blow this black guy in half and stuff him down a well." Wilson was so scared that he decided to keep quiet about the crime and hoped that Manson and the family would go away and leave him alone. It wouldn't be until late 1969 that Wilson learned about the Manson family murders, but decided to keep quiet. This allegation has been brought up to law enforcement officials, and they've confirmed that there's no report matching this description of the crime. So did Wilson simply imagine and hallucinate the murder, or did he really witness it? Number 3. For 46 years, a woman known as Sherry Doe laid unidentified in California until 2015, when she was identified by her friends and family after they came across a sketch of her. After 46 long years, Sherry Doe was finally identified as 19-year-old Reet Gervetson of Montreal, Canada. While Reet had been reunited with her family, the question still remains, was she a victim of the Manson family? On November 16, 1969, Reet's body was discovered in a ravine on Mulholland Drive near Spahn Ranch in Los Angeles. Investigators were stunned to find that she'd suffered from over 150 wounds and concluded that whoever was responsible appeared to be very angry at her. As the investigation was opened into her death, detectives stumbled upon a problem. They had no idea who the woman was. She wasn't carrying any ID with her, and in the days after she had disappeared, no one came forward to claim her, and she didn't match any missing persons reports. A witness came forward claiming to have seen the woman hanging out around the Manson family at Spahn Ranch, and that she went by the name of Sherry. In the absence of her true identity, the woman was named Sherry Doe, and investigators hoped that one day she would get her name back. It wasn't until 2015 when Reet's older sister, Anne, stumbled across the sketch that forensic artists had made of Reet on the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. In turn, Anne provided a DNA sample which confirmed that Sherry Doe was in fact Reet Gervetson. This still left the question of who was responsible for her demise. Many believe that Charles Manson and the Manson family were directly involved in Reet's case. A witness had placed a woman matching Reet's description at Spahn Ranch, and Mulholland Drive was close by. People also point out that overkill had been used in both the cases of Tate LaBianca and Reet. Was Charles Manson responsible, or did Los Angeles have another monster roaming its streets at the same time? Number 2. The trial of the Manson family was one of the most publicized and controversial trials in recent criminal history. Aside from the trial of O.J. Simpson, the Manson family trials are perhaps one of the weirdest to have graced US courtrooms. Just because some of the members were on trial, that doesn't mean that the mysteries end here. Leslie Van Houten, a member of the Manson family, was being represented by lawyer Ronald Hughes. As we know, the trial against Van Houten and other members of the Manson family didn't go the way they had planned. It was clear that Charles Manson and his accomplices were unable to charm the jury, and things in the courtroom quickly heated up, with Manson exhibiting odd behavior and making bizarre claims. In November of 1970, the trial was put on recess, and Ronald Hughes made the most of his time by going on a hiking trip in Ventura County, California. At the time, Hughes was accompanied by a few friends. However, their trip was cut short after they were ordered to evacuate due to floods in the area. It appears that Hughes ignored this order and carried on hiking, and that was the last time he was ever seen alive. The court reconvened on November 30th, 1970, but Hughes was nowhere to be found. After failing to show up for the trial of the decade, Hughes was reported as missing, and search and rescue teams were sent to look for him. It wouldn't be until March 29, 1971, that his remains would be found at Sespe Hot Springs. Due to the level of decomposition, Hughes had to be identified by dental records, and investigators noted that his body had been lodged between two boulders. Because of this, an official cause of death was never determined, but many believe that Charles Manson had something to do with it. In a bizarre coincidence, Hughes's remains were found on the same day that the jury voted to hand down capital punishment to the members of the Manson family. Sandra Good, who had been a member of the Manson family, told AETV, quote, "The family had killed 35 to 40 people, and Hughes was the first of the retaliation murders." Good never revealed who within the family had been responsible for Hughes's demise, and unless credible evidence comes forward, we may never know. Number 1. On December 29, 1968, Marina Habe returned to the home she shared with her parents in Los Angeles, California. Marina had spent the night on a double date with friends, and at 3 a.m., she quietly walked down the driveway and was making her way into the house. That was until her family were awoken by a scuffle on the driveway and saw an unfamiliar car. Marina's car was on the driveway, and her mother, who looked out of the window, assumed that the car was just one of her friends. But as the minutes ticked by and Marina didn't enter the house, she knew that something was wrong. The scuffle that the family had heard was Marina being kidnapped and taken away in the unknown car. On the 31st of 1968, Marina's body was found on Mulholland Drive, much like the body of Reed Jurvetson, whose case we've already covered. Much like other victims of the Manson family, Marina had been subjected to overkill and was found near Spahn Ranch. Since Marina's body was discovered, her case has run cold, and many people believe that the Manson family are responsible. After all, Manson family member Sandra Good alluded to the fact that the family had been responsible for 35 to 40 murders, and it seems like an odd coincidence that the two young women would be found with similar wounds on the same road as each other within a short span of time. According to both Reed's and Marina's families, they were both dating a mysterious man named John shortly before their deaths, leading many to believe that John was Charles Manson, who instructed them to lie to their families. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.